Do you remember those quiet nights when the Waltons felt like your own family? Voices by the fireplace, simple moments that meant everything. Back then, they gave us comfort. But now, decades later, time has rewritten every story behind those faces. What really happened to them after the cameras stopped rolling? And which Walton has stayed with you all these years? Richard Thomas stepped into the role of John Boy Walton at just 20 years old, becoming the quiet voice of reflection that guided millions of viewers through life on Walton's Mountain. As the eldest son and narrator, his thoughtful presence and gentle curiosity made him instantly unforgettable. For many, he wasn't just a character, he was a feeling, a memory of growing up alongside him. At the height of the show's success, Thomas made a surprising decision. After 5 seasons, he chose to step away from the Waltons, a move that puzzled audiences but revealed something deeper about him. He wasn't chasing fame, he was chasing growth. That choice led him into a long and respected career in theater, television, and film, where he continued to evolve far beyond the shadow of John Boy. Now in his mid-70s in 2026, Richard Thomas remains active, still performing with the same quiet intensity that defined his early years. His journey is not one of dramatic reinvention, but of steady dedication, an actor who never stopped working, never stopped refining his craft. And perhaps that's what makes his story so powerful. While the world remembers John Boy as a young dreamer, Thomas himself became something just as meaningful, a lifelong storyteller. And yet, as central as John Boy was, every family needs its foundation. And on the Waltons, that foundation came from a man whose presence felt as real as any father watching from home. Ralph Waite was 44 when he first appeared as John Walton Sr., the steady, hard-working father whose quiet strength held the entire family together. There was nothing flashy about his performance, and that was precisely why it resonated so deeply. He represented a kind of fatherhood that felt honest, firm but loving, strong yet deeply human. Unlike many of his co-stars, Waite did not begin his acting career early. In fact, his path to Hollywood was anything but typical. Before acting, he studied theology and worked in publishing, only turning to acting later in life. That late start gave his performances a grounded authenticity, as if he had already lived the kind of life he portrayed on screen. After the Waltons, Waite continued acting steadily, appearing in numerous television roles while also exploring directing and even stepping into public service. His life reflected the same values his character embodied: commitment, resilience, and purpose. Ralph Waite passed away in 2014 at the age of 85, leaving behind a legacy that extended far beyond a single role. For many, he will always be remembered not just as John Walton Sr., but as the image of a father during a time when television felt more like home. But if John Walton Sr. was the foundation, there was someone else whose quiet strength shaped the emotional heart of the family in ways that were just as unforgettable. Michael Learned was just 33 when she stepped into the role of Olivia Walton, the quiet center of the family, whose strength often spoke louder than words. As the mother of 7, Olivia was warmth, discipline, compassion, and resilience all at once. She wasn't written to dominate scenes, but to hold them together. And Learned did exactly that, creating a presence that felt deeply real to anyone who had ever known a mother's steady love. What many viewers didn't realize at the time was how much of that strength came from her own life. Learned has spoken openly about the pressures she carried during those years, balancing the demands of a hit television series while navigating personal challenges behind the scenes. Yet none of that ever broke through the character. Olivia remained composed, grounded, and quietly powerful, a reflection of both the role and the woman portraying it. Her performance earned her multiple Emmy Awards, a recognition not just of talent, but of emotional truth. And even after stepping away from the Waltons, Michael Learnard never truly left the craft behind. She continued working in television and theater for decades, taking on roles that allowed her to grow and explore beyond the image of Olivia Walton. Now in her late 80s in 2026, she remains a symbol of endurance, an actress whose career was not defined by one role, but enriched by it. Her journey is one of persistence, of continuing forward even when life demanded more than most could see. And in many ways, that quiet resilience mirrors exactly why Olivia Walton meant so much to so many. But while Olivia was the emotional heart of the household, there was another presence who brought something different. Wisdom shaped by time, humor grounded in experience, and a connection to a world that existed long before Walton's Melton. Will Geer was already 70 when he took on the role of Grandpa Zeb Walton, and he carried with him a lifetime that extended far beyond the screen. With his gentle humor, thoughtful stories, and unmistakable voice, he became more than a supporting character. He was the bridge between generations, the reminder that every family is built on stories that came before. Geer's life before the Waltons was as rich and complex as any role he played. He had been a folk singer, a social activist, and a respected stage actor, living through decades of cultural change in America. That depth gave his performance a kind of authenticity that couldn't be taught. When Grandpa spoke, it didn't feel scripted. It felt lived. His time on the Waltons was not long, but it was deeply impactful. Audiences connected with him instantly, drawn to the warmth and quiet wisdom he brought to every scene. And when Will Geer passed away in 1978, at the age of 76, his absence was felt not just by the cast, but by viewers who had come to see him as part of their own extended family. Yet his legacy didn't fade. It lived on in the stories he told, the values he represented, and the cultural footprint he left behind. Not only through the Waltons, but through a lifetime of artistic and personal conviction. And as we continue, one of the most quietly powerful stories is still ahead. A woman whose strength was tested in ways few could imagine, yet whose presence never lost its grace. But even among these unforgettable lives, one story stands apart in a way few could have predicted. Behind one of the show's most gentle and familiar faces lies a journey marked by unexpected challenges and a quiet determination that changed everything. Ellen Corby was already 62 when she brought Grandma Esther Walton to life. Yet her presence carried a kind of timeless energy that made her feel both strong and endlessly comforting. As the family's quiet matriarch, she embodied patience, faith, and a steady resilience that grounded every generation under that roof. She didn't need dramatic moments to be memorable. Her strength lived in the smallest gestures, the softest words, the quiet certainty that everything would somehow be okay. But behind that gentle presence was a life that demanded real endurance. In 1976, at the height of the show's success, Corby suffered a serious stroke that forced her to step away from the Waltons. For a time, it seemed as though her role in the family might come to an abrupt end. Yet what followed became one of the most quietly inspiring chapters of the series. Through determination and careful recovery, she returned to the show, her speech and movement altered, but her presence still unmistakable. The writers adapted, the cast supported her, and audiences embraced her return not with sympathy, but with deep admiration. Her performance after the stroke carried a different kind of truth, one shaped by real struggle, visible yet dignified. It added a layer of authenticity that could never have been written. Ellen Corby passed away in 1999 at the age of 87, but her legacy remains one of quiet courage. She didn't just portray resilience, she lived it right in front of the audience. And for many, Grandma Walton became more than a character. She became a symbol of enduring grace, even when life doesn't return to what it once was. Yet as powerful as that story is, The Waltons was also about growth, about watching children become adults before our eyes. And few transformations on the show felt as real or as personal as that of Mary Ellen Walton. Judy Norton was just 14 when she first appeared as Mary Ellen, the spirited and determined daughter who refused to be confined by expectations. From the beginning, her character stood out, strong-willed, curious, and often ahead of her time. Viewers watched her grow up episode by episode, not just as a character, but as a young woman finding her place in a changing world. But growing up on screen can be both a gift and a challenge. As the series progressed, Norton faced the same struggle many young actors encounter: the risk of being forever tied to a single role. Mary Ellen Walton was beloved, but breaking beyond that identity required courage and reinvention. In the years following The Waltons, Norton explored a variety of paths within the entertainment industry, including stage work and independent projects. She also made deliberate choices to reshape her public image, stepping into roles and opportunities that allowed her to redefine herself beyond the girl audiences once knew. Now in her late 60s in 2026, Judy Norton's journey reflects something deeply human: the effort to grow beyond the version of yourself that the world first embraced. Her story is not about sudden transformation, but about persistence, adaptation, and the quiet determination to keep moving forward. And as we continue, one of the most unexpected paths of all belongs to someone who stepped away from the spotlight entirely, choosing a life far removed from Hollywood, yet no less remarkable. Eric Scott was only 14 when he stepped into the role of Ben Walton, the restless and determined son who often found himself caught between youthful ambition and the responsibilities of growing up. Ben wasn't the quiet observer like John Boy, nor the steady presence of his parents. He was energy, curiosity, and sometimes conflict. And that made him feel real. Viewers saw in him the struggle of finding direction, of wanting more while still belonging to something deeply rooted. For years, Scott grew alongside his character, becoming a familiar face in millions of homes. But unlike many of his co-stars, his most defining chapter began after the cameras stopped rolling. Instead of continuing down the path of acting, he made a choice that few expected. He stepped away from Hollywood entirely. Eric Scott transitioned into the business world, eventually building a successful career in logistics and delivery services. It was a quiet shift, far from the spotlight, but one that reflected a different kind of ambition. There were no scripts, no audiences, no applause. Just the steady work of building something real from the ground up. Now in his mid-60s in 2026, Scott's story stands out not because of fame, but because of its simplicity. He represents a path rarely highlighted in Hollywood narratives: the choice to leave, to redefine success on your own terms, and to find fulfillment outside of public recognition. And in a way, that journey mirrors Ben Walton's spirit more than anything else. The search for purpose didn't end when the show did. It simply moved into a different world. But while some chose to step away, others carried the lessons of Walton's Mountain into entirely new kinds of purpose. Paths shaped not by fame, but by meaning. Cammie Cotler was just 6 years old when she first appeared as Elizabeth Walton, the youngest member of the family, whose innocence and sincerity often brought a quiet emotional depth to the show. She wasn't at the center of the stories, but she was always at the heart of them, a reminder of the purity and hope that defined the Walton household. Growing up on screen can be overwhelming, but Cotler's journey took a different direction. After the Waltons, she gradually stepped away from acting, choosing a life that focused less on performance and more on impact. It was not a retreat, but a conscious decision, a shift towards something more grounded. She pursued education, eventually dedicating herself to teaching and community work. In time, she became involved in educational leadership, helping shape environments where young people could grow, learn, and find their own voices. It was a path far removed from Hollywood, yet deeply connected to the values her character once represented. Now, in her early 60s in 2026, Cami Cotler's life reflects a quiet kind of legacy. Not one measured in roles or recognition, but in influence. The kind that unfolds over time, in classrooms, in communities, in lives touched without fanfare. And perhaps that's what makes her story so fitting as we near the end. Because the Waltons was never just about where life takes you. It was about who you become along the way. Time has a way of quietly rewriting every story. On the Waltons, we were given a picture of family that felt steady, comforting, almost timeless. But in real life, those same faces moved through decades of change, some finding new purpose, some facing hardship, others simply living lives far from the spotlight. The contrast is gentle but powerful. The family we watched stayed together on screen, while life carried each of them in very different directions. And maybe that's why the Waltons still matters. It wasn't just about the Great Depression or life on a mountain. It was about connection, about resilience, about the kind of love that doesn't need to be loud to last. The actors grew older, the world moved on, but what they created still feels untouched by time. So now I want to ask you, when you think back on the Waltons, who do you remember most? And why did they stay with you? If this journey brought back something meaningful for you, take a moment to subscribe. There are many more stories like this. Stories about the people we grew up with and the lives they lived long after the credits faded.